Hi, everyone. I'm Prasad Raman, VP of Partnerships here at Cycode, and I'm excited to host our upcoming session on navigating the security risks of agentic coding tools. Many speakers at the event today have already addressed the rapid evolution of AI-powered agentic coding tools. It's an exciting technology that brings an unprecedented improvement in developer productivity, but it also introduces complex new threat vectors. To help us explore the unique security risks associated with this technology, I'm delighted to welcome two guests from our partner, Secure Code Warrior. We'll be joined by their Chief Product and Technology Officer, Patrick Collins, as well as their VP of Engineering, John Cranney. Patrick, John, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Awesome. So let's dive straight in. From your perspectives in product management and engineering leadership roles, what are the most significant benefits and drawbacks you see with the increasing adoption of agentic coding tools?
I'll go first. I think in terms of benefits, most people would agree that there's a strong productivity gain you can get from. I mean, we first saw it when it came out with the first version of ChatGPT. I was straight on it and using that, and it assisted me quickly to kind of get back into programming again and have become fluent again, actually. But it really supercharged in the last 3 or 4 months as all of these agentic coding tools came out. So even as I talk to my own team, I can see productivity gains, seamless pair programming, more time to focus on features. But coming from a security background, what concerns me and what we see a lot, both in our data and in our customers, is that for average developers, you also, well, on the one hand, you 10x productivity, you also 10x the security risk, I think. There's a lot of undetected vulnerabilities coming in. There is a significant expansion of the attack surface. And there's a lot of data out there to support this, not just an opinion. I mean, if you were going to jump over to Backbench right now, which is a great kind of benchmarking website that, compares different LLMs against each other, just like right there on the homepage, it'll tell you that 60% of the code generated by even the best models are coming out with mistakes and vulnerabilities in them. Which is no problem. I mean, developers create code with vulnerabilities all the time. But if we're assuming that this code is good to go and doesn't need to go through a pull request, then a significant review after the pull request, then it's a challenge. And more experienced developers are going to find those issues immediately or prompt more securely as well. Anything you'd add to that, John?
From our internal use of agentic tools at SCW, we've seen quite a large productivity increase, but I think that there's a limit on that, which is the speed that developers can review the code produced by the LLMs, both for security and to make sure it's functional and performance. And at the moment, we probably get 2 to 3x productivity improvements in areas where we use agentic tools, and it's mostly because of that bottleneck of review. And that review process is still the main control that we have to make sure that we're not introducing insecure code into our environment. So any developer that commits code owns that code, whether it's been produced by an LLM or whether they wrote it themselves. So they have to get inside that code and understand it and be able to answer questions on it through the review process. I think it's going to be really interesting to see down the line, especially as we get more PR review tools, whether like AI PR review tools, whether that control is still effective, and whether that bottleneck will remain in place for reviews. I think that one of the challenges for us is just visibility of how much code is being produced across our code base by AI, and how much of it's making it through to prod. We have a lot of developers that are using in IDE tools, and with those tools we can't really see like who wrote what code. There's some good Git-based tools coming out now, some cloud-based agentic tools that might solve that. But it remains a challenge that you can't tell exactly the authorship of individual pieces of code.
Yeah, on the point of visibility, and I'm not here to sell Secure Code Warrior software, but we at the moment are kind of Secure Code Warrior are known for and have got a past, have got a history and people know us as a software development training company. But we over the last few years we've transitioned into developer risk. And the reason I raised that, or developer risk management. So how do we measure the developer risk? How do we manage the developer risk, and how do we mitigate that? We find most of the AppSec community focused on managing app risk, and we're trying to figure out how to manage developer risk. But on the point that John just raised of visibility of these models, we find consistently when we talk to AppSec teams and CISOs, they do really want to know how much of this code is being generated by AI versus being generated by humans. And they want to have controls and policies that help them to manage that. And just as a very simple example, I think that we should have the level of nuance already to decide which languages are acceptable to vibe code in. I know that sounds strange, but of course, Java, Python, C#, and JavaScript are going to be fine. There's tons and tons of training material on the internet. If you prompt securely and say, and make sure this code doesn't have any SQL injections, it's going to do a pretty good job. But what about PHP Laravel? Or let's go back in time even further and pull in some ABAP code or something like that. Now, those are languages where we probably want to have a company policy that there's insufficient training material on the internet to code securely in those environments. And in fact, we've done a study on that internally that John and I led, which showed exactly that for certain SQL injection, or for certain security categories, all of the LLMs can do just fine on SQL injection, because it's really just a bug. Like SQL injection is just a bug. It shouldn't even occur in the first place. And so the LLMs are fine at handling that. But for more rare privilege escalation type security issues, or not so much rare, but difficult to find because they're more business logic based, LLMs are not so great at that. Humans are not so great at that. Pen testers have to be included to try to find those kinds of vulnerabilities. And so the more esoteric the language that you're working with, the more you should be thinking about what kind of policy you should put in place to kind of control that.
I want to dig in on that a little bit. I think you mentioned some of the unique considerations that organizations need to take into account as these tools proliferate. The concept of secure coding is fairly well established and has been around for a while. As these new agentic coding tools come in and radically reshape what it means to be a development organization to write software in a secure fashion, what are some of the new considerations that need to be top of mind for developers or engineering and product leaders to adapt to this new environment?
I think there's so many. It's all coming at us so fast, right? So there's I don't think we know everything yet. Like we're still grappling with MCPs. They've been out for a little while, but like they just kind of sprung on us in the last couple of months. There's quite a few new challenges emerging. So as I talk to CISOs in market right now, I can tell you that they want to be supportive and they're excited about the productivity benefits that this can bring, but they're super concerned about what we don't know. Of course, there's already a pretty well written up set of top 10 LLM vulnerabilities. Thanks to the OWASP group for leading that chapter. But that only works for those people who are specifically building LLM models. So if you've got people building LLM models or training them or working with them, you've got the top 10 LLM, train people on those. But for the rest of us, we've got to figure out how to work with these models separately. At Secure Code Warrior, we've built a ton of training around this topic for what I would describe as regular developers as opposed to the AI developers. And it's really basic stuff: how to prompt securely, how to handle hallucinations, the implications of code maintainability and over reliance on a tool and those kinds of things. So, I'd think about separate, bifurcating two different kinds of problem domains. Those who are working on AI, get them custom training around OWASP top 10. Those, regular developers. I just like, there shouldn't be a developer today who's writing code who isn't trained how to prompt securely. It's almost like, because we know like everyone's using it. And if they're not, you'd have to be asking why they're not using it, unless there's some kind of company. But we do have one company who have a company policy that they're not allowed to use agentic or AI coding at all. One of our customers, and they're a really big customer as well. It kind of surprises me. It's a really interesting position to take, but all of our other customers, every single one of them without fail, have embraced AI and agentic coding, and they're all grappling with this issue, all of those issues that I just mentioned. So that's kind of probably on the security side. On the legal risk side, it's a brave new world. My IP leaking out, my PII leaking out into the model. Am I violating someone's copyright here if I generate an image and it looks like somebody else's? And then if I give that to a customer and they get sued, who indemnifies who? This is all going to get played out over the next couple of years. And these are all the things that my own legal team, our customers' legal teams, they're worried about this. John's smiling because we're literally negotiating contracts where this stuff is in play right now. So yeah, I'd say the security risks and the legal risks in those two different camps is where we're going to see all this play out. Yeah, John, would you?
I'd just add that the amount of code getting produced by agentic tools, like the fire hose of code that you can generate, like a junior dev can sit down and generate 3,000 lines of code in an hour, and then chuck that in a PR. It might be solid, but it might not. And there's a burden in reviewing that code and getting to the point where you're confident that you can ship it. Even though like we have a policy that we have to review all code thoroughly before it goes to prod, the sheer volume of it may mean for some companies that stuff gets to prod that they might not want to go to prod. The other thing I just highlight around the IP and PII risk, it's not always clear to a developer because of the way the agentic coding tools integrate with multiple LLMs on the back. There's multiple ways that you can get to a given LLM provider. So you might have a developer who's using Copilot and there's a license. They have a license for Copilot. Through Copilot, they have a license to use ChatGPT. They might install a third-party agentic tool like Rue or Klein, and they might put in their own personal ChatGPT AI API key and think that they have the same contractual protection against the code leaking out that the organization does. And it's a little bit complex. So it's something that companies really have to educate their developers about, so that they're protected from their code turning up in a training data set and being in the next version of the model.
John, you mentioned earlier the amount of code getting generated and the challenges of reviewing that. Do you see a world? I know you're very bullish on this. I wanted to ask you: do you see a world where generated code is going straight to prod without human review? Not obviously this year, but like,
yeah, I think there's some companies that are doing it already, right? Mostly small 1 or 2 person startups, coming out of incubators. That's their mode they're in, I think. The question is like, what does it make it to enterprise and mid market? Do you have places where code goes straight to prod, and how much of that do you do? There's a lot of challenges with it, even just from things like SOC 2 compliance. You should, you want to be able to show that you've got make a check that you've got people reviewing the code. I think it'll change as the models get more capable. I think there needs to be there need to be controls in place. I don't know what those look like yet. I wouldn't be comfortable doing it with the state of the models and the tooling in place at the moment. But there's going to be a point where the speed of review is going to be the bottleneck for organizations shipping new features.
Yeah, I can't see a world. I can't see a world yet where code goes straight to prod. Certainly not in larger organizations. I agree with that assessment that like smaller companies, there's a lower risk profile, but larger companies, it's a little tricky. And I just imagine that that court case where it's like, so the defendant's being asked like, so you didn't think that a human should review that code before it was shipped out to customers? and I think that's when, quickly all humans are back in the loop of reviewing more code again. So we get back into the situation where as these tools get more and more productive, a developer has to just be incredibly competent at not just reviewing a mountain of code, but reviewing it for security reviews. And they're going to have so much more responsibility to handle that. And I've been thinking about how, what does that look like in the future? And I spoke to a very smart individual at AWS recently who they're building all of Amazon's Bedrock tooling and Amazon Q, this IDE that's competing with Cursor. And I think that the vision they have is really compelling, which is that as a developer, when I sit in my IDE, I have agents sitting alongside me who are specifically trained in different concerns. So I'll have a security agent. I'll have an agent for business logic and business review. I'll have an agent for UX and considerations around UX and multiple agents looking after multiple concerns, helping me to shape that code base towards production with the developer always in the pilot seat. But I'm trying to take care of some of those ancillary concerns to reduce that review workload that we were just talking about. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I'm seeing it already start to play out as Cursor at the moment, handles just code generation. I can see a world where there's different models alongside Cursor or other tools like that to handle some of these other concerns as well.
I'd love to wrap up kind of with the final question, building on that of who does what. So, there are a lot of problems and risks we identified. There are a lot of people in the organization who, might share some responsibility for securing the company. But how do you see that responsibility for securing these AI-based coding environments being divvied up between developers, security teams, the legal team, lines of business, maybe the vendors that are in there providing these tools? Is there a model you envision, or what have you seen in your experience that has worked for companies today?
Do you want to have a shot at that, John?
At the moment, I think there's we've got something working for us in the existing model, which is there's a culture of ownership within engineering teams where the expectation is that if you submit a PR, you own the PR, you own the outcomes, you own the code, and you're expected to be able to stand behind it and defend it. I think that's going to help us.
We're in an engineering-led culture here, John. Where does that same pattern hold true over in a financial services company?
I think so. Yeah, I think that most organizations there's an expectation that if an engineer submits something, then they own it. I'm hoping that won't shift, because I think that's actually one of the key controls that we have against AI generated slop making its way into prod is that sense of ownership from engineering teams. I think there's layers you can put on top for security review, etc. But I think the developer's always got to be the last line of defense. They need to make that judgment. They're the one who's closest to it through the process.
Yeah, and I would add by saying at the moment, the tooling for the security team to oversee the AI usage at a developer level, it doesn't exist today, and guarantee it'll exist tomorrow. Well, because we're building some of it, but I do think that it's going to be an entire new category emerge of not only being able to govern and monitor LLM usage and code generation. I gave an example earlier of how that needs to be controlled at a per language level, because some languages you should just not be using AI coding with. That tooling doesn't exist, but when it does exist, yeah, I can see a world where the AppSec team are doing what they do today. They're monitoring LLM usage, they're monitoring prompt efficacy, and potentially managing that by either blocking or having conversations as they do today. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I feel like we're just getting started, but I think we're close to the end of our session. But Patrick, John, just wanted to thank both of you for the discussion and for sharing their expertise. I'm sure our audience gained a deeper understanding of the risks posed by the rise in agentic coding tools and how they can take advantage of the productivity benefits while keeping themselves protected. Lastly, thank you to our audience for tuning into this important conversation. I'll now hand it back to Karina, who will be taking us on to the next session. Take care.
Thank you.